Whew. Have you caught your breath yet? Holy cow, what a game in Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals lose a heartbreaker at home to the Houston Texans. They have a losing record overall as a franchise to the Houston Texans. When you look back to so many of these games, high profile, mid-profile, middle of the season, didn't mean much, whatever. A lot of these are decided by very few points. A lot of these are decided by a lot of different turnovers, crazy, wacky plays. And today was no different for both teams. The Cincinnati Bengals cruised out to an early lead. They had a good opening game plan. No T. Higgins, so they decided to lean heavily. As we kind of talked about on this show a little bit and on others, they leaned heavily early on Tanner Hudson, 5 catches on the opening touchdown drive alone. Trenton Irwin comes down with the big play with the touchdown reception on the opening drive, and you're saying, hey, here we go. We're off to the races. Things are clicking. The Cincinnati Bengals at one point had 4 straight punts on offense with, I think, 3 and outs. This is in the first half. They had no answers. There were numerous 3rd and longs, and this is throughout the entire game. 3rd and longs given up. Noah Brown, wide receiver Noah Brown, 0 answers for that guy. And we'll show you the stats. Some of the stats allowed by the defense this week are eye-popping. Unbelievable. And there were plays where you just said, man, this is just, this is one word. Brandon Savoy on Facebook here. We got a lot of live viewers on a lot of different platforms right there. That this sums up the day. Look, this is why I suck at social media, because I'm not the told you so guy. But there is a reason I had, and it was probably, I kind of joked, this is probably my old Bengals PTSD from the Dick LeBeau days, the Marvin Lewis days, all these, a lot of Bengals football I have watched. And even when the team has been good, there's the game that just sticks out like a sore thumb on the schedule. When this game was put on the schedule in May, when they did the big schedule release and everything, I hated where this game was placed on the schedule. I hated it. You have the high-profile game against the Bills Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a physical game, a big game, but all kinds of energy there. A week and a half later, you've got to go on the road to face the Baltimore Ravens in a huge divisional game, which, oh, by the way, looms way larger now with this loss. And with 2 divisional losses early this year for the Bengals, one of which to this Ravens team, by the way. And then you've got, oh, by the way, this Texans game right in the middle of both of those. They've got this rookie quarterback and a new head coach. And you're saying, even back in May, you're going, wow, that's a win. That's going to be a win. And then as the season progressed, the Bengals struggled early on. The Texans just kind of kept pace with a lot of teams. And then this week hits, and you've got injuries to Sam Hubbard. You got injuries to Jamar Chase. You got injuries to T. Higgins. Higgins and Hubbard obviously not in there. This is a game where, you miss some of the old – Hubbard's effect as an edge defender and a run defender was felt in this game. And then, other issues popped up. Over 500 yards of offense allowed by the Cincinnati Bengals defense today. 100-yard rusher, 100-yard receiver, 300-yard passer. You can't win that way. No matter what kind of comebacks you have, no matter what, when you throw 2 interceptions, you allow over 500 yards of offense, and you have the trifecta of 100, 100, 300, you can't win, no matter really who you're playing. And that's what happened today. The Bengals did create 3 turnovers today, which was awesome against a Texans team that does not turn over the ball very often. 1 interception and 1 fumble from CJ Stroud. And so, I mean, there were a lot of mistakes to go all around today. And you can point to singular moments, you can point to stretches of the game, and either way you would be right. You can point the big deal, of course, was the Tyler Boyd drop in the end zone. He makes the huge play to get you down there, and then he drops this ball that you catches 9.7 times out of 10. He catches that ball, and he had it, and then he didn't, and then he had it again, and then he didn't. And you kind of felt like if you had to go for the tie there, even with a backup kicker, you kind of felt like this you needed to kind of get that touchdown there to make sure that this was going to be a different complexion of a game. And tackling was poor today by the Bengals. Their offensive line was getting blown up. You've heard the name Sheldon Rankins, and Sheldon Rankins was a guy that the Bengals were interested in coming out of the draft. Sheldon Rankins was a guy the Bengals were interested in when he was a free agent in 2021. They courted him. They pushed hard to get him here, and they did not get him. And that's when they went back to Larry Ogunjobi at that point, and then the trade for BJ Hill, et cetera. But Sheldon Rankins was a guy the Bengals have wanted for a long time, and he never came here. And so then he went to the Jets that year for a couple of years, and then he landed with the Texans this year, and he absolutely blew up the game today on defense. And then you had kind of I don't want to call them no names at wide receiver. You had kind of a bunch of okay guys at wide receiver for the Texans that just blew the doors open on this secondary. Nick Scott was out of position on passes and runs. Dax Hill had one nice pass breakup, but he was confused all over the place as well. The secondary just was kind of a mess. Cam Taylor-Britt had another nice interception to get the Bengals back in this game. He was kind of one of the lone bright spots. You dropped this one at home to the Bengals at the very last second. And now you're 5-4. You're going to Baltimore in a game that both teams feel that they got to have. And this was kind of I don't like to think that the Bengals thought this was a trap. They overlooked this game or whatever in the trap game. It's hard to win 5 games in a row in the NFL. I get it. It's hard to I mean, what they did last year, the 10 to 12 game win streak to end the year and everything, including the postseason. It's hard to do that in the NFL. I get it, but there are opportunities that you need to take advantage of. This was one of them today, and the Bengals just did not do it. And so there are questions about the pass rush. And now, very last play of the game, aside from the kick, Trey Hendrickson gets rolled up on a play where there's shoddy tackling. He gets rolled up on from behind, and it looks like a knee issue. Who knows how severe that is now after him dealing with an ankle injury from the San Francisco game. That's not good news. That's your top pass rusher, and the Bengals could not muster any real pass rush threats from any spot on the field aside from Hendrickson. And Hendrickson was largely shut down today, aside from, a couple of nice plays, but largely shut down from Laramie Tunsil on that left side there. So the Bengals have a lot of questions going forward. This defense has been one that has given up points, given up yards throughout most of this year. We knew that, but they were also, we've talked about this, an opportunistic defense. That is exactly what they were today. Gave up a ton of yards, a lot of points, but also gave you 3 turnovers. In the Bengals offense, you get 2 of those turnovers, granted deep in your own territory, and you did nothing with them. You got 0 points out of those. So that is an indictment on the offense. And now we're kind of going back. Granted, they scored much more points this week, did the Bengals, than they did earlier in this season. But this was very reminiscent in a lot of different ways of early this season, like that Ravens game where you have turnovers. You're letting up a lot of yards. You're getting kind of a hole. You got to climb your way back out. And this was not the way that the rest of the win streak went for the Cincinnati Bengals so far this year. They got a lead and they just kind of hung on to it, and they kept making plays and plays and plays. And then, oh, by the way, they'd pile on a turnover or 2. So, I'm really, really worried about the rest of this year, particularly if something happens with Trey Hendrickson that is severe. I don't know. But kudos to the Texans. I mean, we're talking about, what the Bengals didn't do and all that. And the Texans came in there and they were confident. They were moving the ball. CJ Stroud is the real deal. He looks very good, and they will be a problem going forward. They're coached pretty well. They have some flaws, most definitely, as a team. I don't know how much staying power they will have this year, but I think at least in the next couple of years, this is a team that's going to be scrappy and tough to deal with. And this is one of those teams that is just a thorn in the Bengals side, historically speaking, and it is not any different today. I started going on this deal. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com. This is the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast, and we're talking about the Bengals losing to the Texans in last-second fashion, 30-27, a wild game, back and forth, highly entertaining. Bengals made a heck of a run of it, down 10 with half of a quarter left to play, but ultimately, 2 Burrow interceptions, one of which was thrown in the end zone, the Texans end zone, that would have resulted in points. You could talk about the Boyd drop, but there are a couple of misses, two misses when the Bengals were driving on 2 other drives that led to interceptions. And, that first play also, I think it was on that last drive, first play, he's got Trenton Irwin open and he misses him there. Does Burrow. So, just a lot of errors today. A lot of errors, a lot of unforced errors, and a lot of, I don't know if it was fatigue. I don't know if it was a bad matchup, bad game plan. There were just problems all over the place. So, yeah, Ron Mangual here says, and hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, the receivers were wide open all day. Why? There's just a lot. Noah Brown was, I can't remember a wide receiver having a day quite like that. Ayuk had kind of a similar day a few weeks back, but a lot of that was in garbage time. This was just, he was just open all the time, middle deep parts of the field. And then here, let's go. I'd have to go back and kind of watch and see a little more specifically what happened there. But Mr. Whisper, thank you for your YouTube super chat. Tough loss. Those blaming Tyler need to remember that he got us into position to tie. But he had another critical drop also on a drive that was on a 2nd and 9, I believe. Would have had a big play, and that drive ended up stalling out when the Bengals needed some points and needed some momentum there too. So 2 huge drops from him today. Tyler Boyd's made a number of clutch plays for this team historically. He's been a very, very good player for this team historically, but he, along like many others, I don't want to say they sleptwalked through this game because they didn't, but there were just a lot of just uncharacteristic errors today. A lot of them on defense, quite a few of them on offense, and the Bengals again. Here, I'll pull up some stuff courtesy of ESPN. We'll be here for only just a little while longer here, but here are the team stats, basically the game stats here, and you'll see a pattern. 28 first downs by the Texans, 20, and this is courtesy of ESPN.com, by the way. I will pin these links in the live chats for those. Want to make sure I give everybody proper credit. Don't want to be not doing that. So there you go. There's a link for those of you in there. Thank you again, Mr. Whisper, for the super chat. If you want your comments on there, those get priority for sure. Appreciate that. But again, look at this: 28 first downs to 20 for the Bengals, 16-11 passing first downs, 10-5 rushing first downs, first down from penalties. Bengals benefited more from that. Bengals were better on third down, 6 of 14, 4 of 13 for the Texans. And then they had the 1 fourth down conversion. Total play 74-60. So that's a disparity there. Here you go. 544 in terms of total yards, 380 for the Bengals. Both teams had the same amount of drives, and look what they did with them. Look at the yards per play, over a yard more, 1.1 yards more per play, 7.4 for the Texans, 6.3 for the Bengals. And then, of course, you've got, pretty close passing yards there. Sacks, 1, and, the Bengals had 1 with no yards lost on it. Burrow sacked 4 times for 33 yards, another big disparity. Penalties, 7 for 50 for the Texans, just 4, but for 63 yards, the big pass interference one. And then, the Stanley Morgan, I found that to be a little questionable. The one on the sideline there was also a holding against Jonah Williams where felt like Will Anderson had a little bit of a flop there. Same could be said about the pass interference penalty, but still, you overcome that. Time of possession balanced out towards the end, but it was not that way for a long time. And then, of course, you see the 3 turnovers by the Texans, 2 for the Bengals. So they won the turnover battle and still lost the game. A lot of disparity, though, when you look at the overall stats, and that'll tell you kind of what happened in this one here. Bengals lose 30-27 in last-second fashion. Pretty unbelievable game overall. Pretty unbelievable game. And they are let's talk about this. Jacob Allen here in the YouTube chat says Bengals last in their division. So just to recap, in case those of you missed some of the early games, there was 3 divisional opponents, but 2 games because the Browns played the Ravens in Baltimore. The Browns came back. They were down, I think, 19-7 at one point against the Baltimore Ravens, came back and won 33-31. The Steelers stave off the Green Bay Packers at home 23-19. So those 2 teams are now above the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC North, as are the Baltimore Ravens, who are up top here. And that is not good news for the Bengals being in the cellar. The Ravens are 7-3 on top with that loss to the Browns. The Steelers and the Browns are 6-3 each. And they all have, if you look at their records, I mean, they all have won games in the division. The Bengals have not. They have 4 left to go. One this Thursday night in Baltimore. The Bengals are 5-4. And I got to tell you what, as much as we say we want to make sure Trey Hendrickson is healthy, and it didn't look terrible. It wasn't like he was carted off the field, but he walked pretty gingerly off the field and had to be helped a little bit. As much as we say we want him back, I'm going to tell you how they defend Lamar Jackson and their offense, what the Baltimore offense likes to do with the football. You got to have Sam Hubbard back for this next one. You have to have Sam Hubbard back for this one. So hopefully he heals up, and then hopefully both of them are out there. But Sam Hubbard is critical in this game as well, coming up against the Baltimore Ravens for the Cincinnati Bengals. And man, big game coming up. I think if you're the Bengals and you fall to 5-5 and 0-3 in the division, I don't want to say season over, because you still have 3 more games in the division to go, but you got to get hot. You got to really, really get hot. The Cincinnati Bengals offensive line was playing pretty well up until this game. They kind of got whipped there. Their defensive line was pushed back routinely, as evidence. We'll show you some of the individual stats here. We talked about the 544 total yards of offense for the Houston Texans. The defense did not have any answers really for the Houston Texans other than creating a turnover. That's really that was their only opportunity for the most part. They had a stop late that was critical, but they did not have a lot of answers today. Nor did the offense in the first half. Nor did the offense. So, this team has shown a penchant to be streaky, both on individually on each side of the ball, as well as just as a team. And they've shown that ever since 2021, and it's popping up again this season. We'll see. I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com. This is the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast, part of the Cincy Jungle Podcast Network. You can get all of our shows on the audio side on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, all of the major ones. We are there on the Cincy Jungle Bengals podcast channel. This show, the Orange and Black Insider, talking football with Bengal Jim and friends. Coach Speak and Chalk Talk with Matt Minnick, the coach, Matt Minnick, and of course 3 and Out with Jason and Kevin, all part of that podcast network. If you like what we do on the video side of things here and our specific show, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel right by that Cincy Jungle icon. You'll see an Orange and Black Insider show icon. Click that, click the subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when we go live and when new content is available. And if you like what we do, despite the result, if you're a Bengals fan today, if you like what we do on the YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up. That helps out our channel and what we do here. Appreciate all of you. We have a lot of people tuning in right now for an immediate reaction, and understandably so. Whether you're a Texans fan, I guess congratulations are in order. That was a big win for your team. Or if you're a Bengals fan, a lot of questions, not a lot of answers at this point. I know they were coming off a 4-game win streak. They can string together wins again. We've seen them do it. The AFC North is both formidable and vulnerable simultaneously. So I think you could look at that and kind of go, okay, well, there's an opportunity here. But at any rate, a lot of different things happening and a lot of questions for the Bengals. They've just been wildly inconsistent. It's like super inconsistent, or I guess consistently bad at the beginning of the year and then consistently good towards the middle part. And then you're kind of got this game here where you go, I don't know what to make of that one. So a lot of different things to take away from this one. Let's go through one more on ESPN.com. They are very nice to compile a lot of different stats for us. So we will take advantage of that, but we appreciate the great work that all of them do, and go give The Bengals beat writer for ESPN, Ben Baby, a follow as well if you have not done so. He is great, and he's been on our show a couple of times as well. We appreciate him and his contributions to covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Here you go. Here are the numbers. Look at CJ Stroud, 23 of 39, 356, 9.1 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, just a sack, and 87.1 rating. The Joe Burrow on the other side, 27 of 40, 347, 2 touchdowns. The one to Chase was outstanding. Actually, the throw to Irwin in the beginning was outstanding as well. 2 interceptions. The 2 interceptions, both deep in Texans territory, one of which was thrown in the end zone. Just, not great there. Still a 90.3 rating. 4 sacks, though, and a lot of hurries, a lot of pressures, a lot of hits on Joe Burrow. Look at Devin Singletary. This might be a career game. I don't know his stats since he's joined the league, but this has to be up there for a top 3 game in his career. 30 for 150, 5 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. No answers for him from the Cincinnati defense. And this is where one of the major areas of disparity that I talked about. Look, you give up 188 on the ground from a number of different players. You see, a couple of different end arounds there, and Stroud ran a couple. 188 net, 5.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns on the ground, one of which from Stroud in this game by the Bengals defense. The rushing offense, 66 yards, 4.1. I mean, it's respectable, and you understand when you were down 10, especially late, why you went away from it, but that's a massive disparity. That is a massive disparity. 4.1 yards per carry, 1 touchdown with a long of 17. So the Bengals need to get some more consistency in the ground game. I know they're a pass-first offense. I know they got the weapons at wide receiver, of course. You go run your offense through that, and then you supplement with the rushing attack. But you got to be able to have some semblance of balance, and especially if you're allowing so much, big plays on the ground on defense. This is just, you can't go 188 and give that up and get 66 on the ground. That's just not a very sustainable way to play football. Chase, real quiet early, but then picked it up late, 5 for 124, the big 64-yarder off script, a touchdown. And then, of course, you got Trenton Irwin, just 2 catches, but for 54 yards and a touchdown. His other catch was a big one as well. Tyler Boyd had 8 catches, 117 yards today, another 64-yarder for him as well, the one late, but 2 big drops by him this week. Again, not the only person to be criticized in this one, but obviously those get accentuated a bit. Tanner Hudson, 6 catches for 33, had 5 on the first drive, and things were working. And all of a sudden, he only gets 2 more targets the entire game, 1 more catch. So Drew Sample 2 for 12, and then a bunch of others that either had 1 catch or just a target and no catches. So you kind of went away from Hudson after that first drive, whether that was intentional or Houston was taking things away, maybe a little bit of both. But you did that, and you weren't going to Chase. And I know there was a lot of coverage bracketed to him, especially early. But if you're going to move away from something that's working in Tanner Hudson, and granted, some of those he made a couple of nice catches, and some of those were kind of real, 2-yard, 3-yard. I mean, it was kind of reach and get that first down just barely type of stuff. But I mean, it was working for the most part on that first drive. He was mixing in nicely, and didn't continue on from there. So and then Dalton Schultz, big game from him, 4 for 71. Noah Brown, 7 for 172. Holy cow. Tank Dell, just a nice weapon for the Houston Texans there, 6 for 56 and a touchdown. Did have a run on the ground. He left the game briefly with what was like a rib injury, I think. Mechie, 2 for 25. Woods almost had a big touchdown that would have put the game away earlier, but he stepped out of bounds, was very close to being ruled the other way, but it was not. But I mean, again, pretty close otherwise through the air, 356 and 347 net. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball here. Really, I mean, we could go through a lot of different stuff, but I really just kind of want to focus on the stats at the bottom here. And if you look at sacks, tackles for loss right here, and quarterback hits, you look here, 9 quarterback hits, 4 sacks, and 6 total tackles for loss. Bengals on defense, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 4 quarterback hits. That'll tell you a lot of what happened today as well. The trench play went heavily in favor of the Houston Texans on both sides of the ball. Again, let's scroll back up. 188 on the ground. 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits on defense. And then we'll go 66 on the ground for the Bengals. 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 4 quarterback hits. That is a huge disparity. So again, it depends on how you look at this. You could look at this and say, man, the Bengals didn't play their best game at all, and they were way close to pulling out an incredible win. Yeah, you'd be right about that. But you can also look at this and say the Bengals were whipped today. They got whipped. And I guess it's a little bit of a compliment to them that they made the game this close by being whipped in a lot of different phases. And I mean, you could kind of blend a lot of those opinions and be right, I think. So Trevor Smith saying, I feel like I need therapy after this game. Hopefully you can use this show a little bit as a form of therapy, maybe. I mean, we commiserate a little bit, but we also tell it like it is. We try and be objective in a lot of different stuff. But yeah, so a lot of the defensive scheme has to be changed. I see John Silvani says Tyler dropped the ball 2 times. Yeah, we talked about that. 2 big drops by him. And then, you know, a lot of look, there's a lot of blame to be thrown around today. Burrow, two interceptions late. The offensive line, again, the nine quarterback hits and 4 sacks in this one allowed. We know sacks aren't always just on the offensive line. Let's throw that disclaimer out as well. I mean, it could be on, you know, the running back missing pass pro, or Burrow running into sacks, or coverage sacks, and all kinds of different stuff. We know that. But when you look at it holistically, right? 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, 1 sack, 4 quarterback hits. That's a big disparity in line play, offensive and defensive line play for both teams. That's a big disparity. Big disparity. Yeah, Marchin Muertos. The only conference team the Bengals beat was the Bills. Yeah, I mean, right now, the Bengals, they have 5 wins. 4 against the NFC West and 1 against the Bills. They got to start winning, because here's what's going to happen, or what can happen, I guess. The Bengals can make a run of it again, right? Let's say they get to 10 wins. Pretty feasible. And then you got to scrum with a lot of other teams that may have 10 wins. The Chargers are kind of surging a little bit. The Jaguars are up there quite a bit. You've got 3 teams ahead of you in the AFC North as it is right now. Let's say the Bengals are tied right now with a lot of different teams. Let's say the Texans end up getting to 10 wins this year. And all of a sudden you look at the tiebreakers, and it's a game like this. It's the game against the Ravens in week 2. It's the game against the Browns in week 1 that start screwing up your tiebreaker system to get you sneaked into the wild card spot, one of the last wild card spots. So they need to start collecting a lot of different wins here coming up. Now, just to remind folks of, before we get out of here, of who the Bengals have on tap here. You have the Thursday night game, short week, going on the road to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Not the following Sunday, the Sunday after. So the Sunday after Thanksgiving, November 26th, the Bengals host the Steelers at 1 p.m. Eastern. Then you have a giant Monday night game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tough one. You then host the Colts 6 days later, December 10th, 1 p.m. Eastern. The Vikings, you have the Vikings after that on December 17th, unknown of when that start time is going to be at this point. And then you've got the Steelers again the day before Christmas Eve, 4:30 p.m. kickoff time that time. Then you have the Chiefs on New Year's Eve, and you got the Browns at home on January 7th. So of the remaining games, you have, as I said, 1, 2, 3, 4 division games. And 7 conference games. 1 more NFC game in the Vikings. So again, of 8 games left, 4 division games, 7 AFC games. Got to make your run. Got to make your run. And again, I mean, these teams are all tough. They all have vulnerabilities. The Ravens, they've shown vulnerabilities. They've shown the ability to be one of the best teams in the conference. Same with the Bengals. They've shown vulnerabilities. They've shown the ability to beat the 49ers in San Francisco. They've shown the ability to beat Buffalo at home. Those are two good teams. The Bengals have shown the propensity to be a team that can be world beaters and be one of the best teams in the conference, or maddeningly inconsistent. The Steelers, I don't get it, but they're winning games. You look at that roster, I don't get it, but they are winning games, as they always do. So they will be in it at the end. The Jaguars, they're a pretty good team. The Colts, but you look at them, there might be a little bit of similarities. Granted, the quarterback situation's different there than it is with CJ Stroud, but there might be a little bit of similarities. That's not going to be a walk in the park. The Vikings, they lost Kirk Cousins, but they won the game last week with Josh Dobbs, a player the Bengals beat earlier this year already. So, I mean, that's a wonky game. You got the Steelers again, and then, of course, the Chiefs. They're one of the best teams in the conference, but they've also lost to Denver, the Broncos are not very good. So there's aspects of these games that are all winnable, but there are aspects of these games that point to you to say, if you keep doing some of these trends that we've seen from this Bengals team this year, letting up a lot of yards on the ground, letting up a decent amount of points, relying on turnovers rather than getting off the field a little more consistency, forcing a punt, when you're not running the ball all that great, these are all things that go against you. And the Cincinnati Bengals need to figure out some of this stuff. They've largely taken care of the football on the offense in terms of turnovers. Today was a little bit of an exception, but, again, they were kind of in comeback mode. They were in, garbage. I don't want to call it garbage time because it ended up being not garbage time, but they were in comeback mode. And, those turnovers happened, but they happened deep in Houston territory. So this was a game you looked at it and you go, I don't like where this is on the schedule. I don't like a lot of things about it. I don't like the injuries the Bengals have this week. But you kind of had to, you feel like the Bengals had to find a way. This was a home game. This was a conference game. This was a winnable game, a tough game, a winnable game, and they didn't do it. So they need to now, the Bengals probably need to at least split the division, if not run the table of the rest of the games they have left to get to 4-2 in the division. And then they probably got to beat a team, you probably got to get the Chiefs as a W. And if not them, then maybe the Jags and kind of jockey for things there. So you got to get that Colts game. You got to get 3 or 4 of those divisional games. And, at that point, what's that? I mean, that puts you at 9-10 wins, depending 9 wins. And then, from there you have the Chiefs, the Browns, and, your Vikings game in there. So I think you got to win 5, maybe 6 of the next 8. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, with most of those coming in conference games, again, 7 conference games, 4 divisional games for the Bengals ahead. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you for tuning in. We've got a lot of live viewers across a lot of different platforms. I appreciate that. That is awesome. Whether it's our YouTube channel, the Cincy Jungle Facebook page, or our Twitter account, I appreciate it. Hey, thanks again for supporting this show. If you're new here, come back. We do all kinds of different shows on this channel, on our YouTube channel, as well as on our audio side. Come back, check it out, subscribe, do all the things. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and try and go have some fun. This was a tough one. This was a tough one to watch, a tough one. It was fun, but it was also tough to take in terms of results and all of that from the Bengals side of things. Congrats to the Texans. Big win for them, and they fought hard to get it. But Bengals fall just short, 27-30 at the last second. The Texans kick a field goal and break the hearts of the Bengals. We'll be back with more on this channel and the rest. Go to cincyjungle.com for your news, opinions, analysis, videos, podcasts, etc. And hey, enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will see you soon. Take care.